Hello guys, in today's tutorial I would like to show you how I created this crystal on a rock procedural model. It's fully destruction ready, meaning there's no intersection in the model itself, so that if you decide to blow stuff up, it won't explode immediately on the first frame. And yeah, the method I took from Arvid's gemstone walkthrough tutorial for Houdini, and yeah, since we're using TyFlow, I just, decided to see if we can do this in it. So yeah, let's get started. I will put the link in the description for the Arvid's tutorial. So here we are in the new scene. Let's create our first TyFlow object. I called it crystal base for the generations, and yeah, let's get started. I will birth just one particle in the middle of the scene. I will do a shape, and let's do a simple cube. I would also like to switch this to geometry. Yeah, and let's scale this up to better see what's going on. Let's do a non-uniform cube so that we kind of have a different shape each seed, right? So this is our base. Let's continue. Then we do the edge fracture. Everything is by default, is okay. I just deleting the edges in here. Let's see what we get. Yeah, feel free to play around with the settings to get the different shapes you want, but yeah, I think this is good enough. Next, let's do another edge fracture. Let's fracture only corners. Put the 350 threshold in here. Maybe less divergence. The distance lower, and let's see, maybe more fractures. And we're also gonna delete those. I think it's too much. Let's do one. Yeah, I think it's good. What I would also like to do is overwrite the material ID. I will explain this later why I do this. And let's put beforehand the baked material ID 1. It's important to bake this into a particle mesh. And let's maybe do another edge fracture. This time only fracture edges, and yeah, let's see, maybe a little more. Let's do more fractures. Also do the override material ID to 3, and also let's delete those. Yeah, so this is kind of our base shape. Now each time we change the ID, we get completely different crystal, right? Yeah, let's do mesh, not render only. Let's continue. Let's create another TyFlow object. Let's call it O2 Ty crystal damage base. Let's open it. Let's birth let's say 500 particles. Let's position them onto our base like so. And what we're doing right now is the edge damage. As you can see here in Arvid's tutorial, there's a node called edge damage, which we don't have, not in TyFlow, not in Max, and it's definitely not going to be procedural. You can try and use the script or a plugin called polydamage, but it's not a procedural way, so yeah, I would like to try and avoid it. I would like to do everything in max. So the method I kind of came up with, it's a kind of cheat method. So we override those cap IDs so that we can use that ID to tell the TyFlow where exactly do we want to spawn those particles. And as you can see, let's open up our crystal base. We also get particles on this face, which we don't really need. It sometimes happens because it can edge fracture the whole large faces. So we can play around with the density by surface area. I think this is good enough. Yeah, let's do a shape. Let's do geosphere. Let's show the geometry. I think it's way too big for me. Let's do the scaling. Let's see. Yeah, maybe something like this. Maybe do a little more, a little less. Also, let's displace position of those particles based on the underlying crystal. Let's do a low number here so that we still have the intersection. Like so, I think. We can also play around with displays by noise. Let's do 0.1. Let's do 0.1, 0.5, 0.3. Yeah, I think it kind of works. So now let's hide those. Let's birth a VDB. Particles to VDB. Include this flow. Use particles as a mesh. Let's make the lower density of the voxels. 0.25, 0.2. Yeah, I think it's good enough. Let's do another TyFlow setup and see if it's good or not. So let's call it O3 Ty Crystal Edge Damage. Let's open it up. Let's birth VDB. We don't need mesh here. Let's do object to VDB. Let's pick the crystal base. Let's paste it in here and remove this. Do the crystal damage, and we're gonna send this out to another event. Both of them. It's also pretty important that your particles should be in the evaluation priority too, because it's not always working if you have them at the same evaluation priority. Let's do the lower voxel grid size. I think it's too big. Yeah, like so. And the important part is where your particles are, you do the subtract. So now you have this damage, which is kind of way too big. So you can always go back and play around with the, let's say, display settings and see what we can do. Yeah, I think it can work. It's a little bit too intense, so maybe let's tweak it some more. It's 2.2. And maybe let's do 30% by 90%. Yeah, like so, I think it's good enough. Now what we can do is to put an optimize on top, which is gonna reduce our geometry, and smooth to remove all of the normals from here. Let's do another Ty setup. 04 Ty crystal final, and we're gonna use it just on the few of those crystals. Let's birth object. Let's pick our crystal edge and let's add Voronoi. Let's also do the scale just for testing. Let's see what we have. I think it's too much. The reason we're doing this is because I want some of the crystals to have this internal breakup. It can produce pretty nice effects on the render itself, but I don't want all of them to be fractured. We're just gonna do a few of those, and everything else is not gonna be fractured. So let's get rid of the scale. Yeah, and that's it. The last thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go to time measure. We're gonna put it here. We're gonna call it 05 time measure crystal. We're gonna pick our final. And let's extract mesh in there. Now what we can do is we can just right click, reset all operators, and it's gonna create a completely different crystal all the time. So we have 2 crystals with the Voronoi fracture. I think it's enough, and let me just create a few more of those without the fractures. I don't like that, but yeah, who cares. Reset all operators, extract. We like that. Let's see. Maybe one more. Like so. So yeah, these are the crystals that we created using that method. As you can see, the geometry is quite nice. We have some nice edge breakup in here. Now let's create a new layer, call it Tire Rock. Let's do the first tie setup. 06 tie rock base. Let's open it up. Let's see here. Let's do a birth, one particle. Let's do a shape as geometry, and let's do maybe stones, I guess. Yeah, stones can work. Let's just make it much bigger. Then we're gonna do a scale. Let's see. Maybe something like this. I also would like to remove the smoothing from here. I don't need the explicit normals. Let's do this displace by noise. O2. And maybe do the offset. Yeah, kind of like so. And I don't really looking for anything specific in here. I just searching for a nice irregular shape, kind of rock-like. So let's birth a VDB from this. Let's do particles to VDB. Include particle meshes. Let's do 0.5 to kind of make it faster for now. We need the solver in here. We need a modify, VDB modify. This one we're gonna leave by default. It's gonna push the VDB out using the normals of the mesh. Then we're gonna do another modify. Sorry, not this modify. Another VDB modifier. We're gonna add noise. We're gonna use cellular value, I think. Let's do 20 centimeters. Let's do a lower scale. Let's play around with these settings. Let's do O2, O2, 5. Yeah, it's starting to look like a rock to me. And what I'm looking the most right now is the crevices that we're gonna have in here, so that we can place our crystals in those crevices to create the natural look that they're growing from inside the rock and not just scattered on top of it. So let me just reduce this because it's getting too long to calculate right now. So let's do one more modify, VDB modify. Let's do add as well. Let's do the noise. Let's see here. Let's do maybe curl with some big values. Lower scale. I think it's too much. Maybe like so. Yeah, I think it's good enough. It has this sort of a rockish texture feel on it. Let's lower our voxel size. I think it's too much. Maybe 5. Yeah, and this is good for our base. Now let's create another TyFlow. Let's call it 07 Ty Rock AO, I guess. As ambient occlusion, let's birth object, let's pick our rock, and that's pretty much all we're gonna do in here. Oh no, sorry. We're gonna put a mesh operator in here, turn off the render only, and let's use TySelect in here. I'm gonna do vertices, I'm gonna do the occluded elements We're gonna do the accuracy 10. Yeah, sorry, not occluded elements, occluded faces. With the accuracy of 10, let's see if it works. Not really. Any heat occlusion, yeah. It works. Let's do a little bit of soft selection. Maybe like so. Yeah, this is gonna be our selection for the crystals. So let's hide this for now. Let's do another. Let's call it TyScatter. Let's do another TyFlow. 08 Ty crystals big. Let's birth some particles. Let's do a position object. Let's pick our ambient occlusion. Let's do selected vertices random. Let's do the shape. Let's pick all of our generated shapes. Add them here. Geometry. Yeah, they're way too big right now. So let's scale them down. Maybe 20. Let's turn on our rock. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention is you need to go and center the pivots, otherwise they're gonna grow outside rather than in the middle, going more into the inside of the rock, as you would usually expect from the crystals. So yeah, let's continue. Let's do a random rotation in here. Now we're gonna do the separation maybe by 2 centimeters, 1.5. I would like this to be scaled more, like so. Let me see here. Let's recede, see if we can get something, but that's looking much better, nicer. Yeah, I think this looks nice. Now what I would like to do is to do another Ty rock. This time it's gonna be a final one. 09 Ty rock final. Let's open it up. Let's bring our PDB. We're gonna bring our object to PDB. We're gonna pick our ambient occlusion rock. And we're also gonna bring our crystals. We're gonna use birth VDB. We're gonna do particles to VDB. We're gonna pick our crystals big. We need that. 05. And let's repeat the same process that we did at the beginning with our damage. So we're gonna subtract one from another, like so. Oh yeah, sorry. We need to use particle meshes in here. Yeah, and as you can see, if I just turn off the visibility, we have these nice holes, but I would like to push them out a little bit as you can see here, we have some intersecting geometry, which isn't really good. And it also can create, even if you don't do the explosions and simulation stuff, it also can create some artifacts, because usually crystals are translucent, and translucency tend to create artifacts if there's intersections. So I'm gonna do a solver in here, and I'm gonna do VDB modify and just leave it as is. As you can see, it pushed out our shapes of the crystals, as you can see here. And if it's too much, you can always go to input vectors and have the multiplier. Yeah, now I don't think we have enough density in here. Yeah, this is much better. Okay, so now let's repeat the process with big ones, because what I also would like to do is to spawn the smaller ones somewhere around the bigger particles. So let's do birth. Let's do maybe 5,000 of them. Let's do shape. Just rename this. So yeah, let's position object. Let's pick our ambient occlusion version. But this time we won't use the selection. Let's see here. I think what we need to do is to go back to crystal big and put the mesh modifier in here. Turn off the render only. Let's do the test. Distance is okay. Let's do crystal big. And if the distance is greater than, let's say, 0.2, let's delete those. So they're kind of forming around the main crystals in here, but also, as you can see, they're forming inside of the crystals, which we don't need because it's gonna be nested translucency. So let's do another surface test. Let's pick the same object. Let's use the volume inside, maybe use faces, and delete. Yeah, so now we only have the particles outside of the main crystals. Let's now do the shape. Let's take our meshes. Show as geometry, way too big. Let's scale them down. Let's do the random rotation. Let's maybe use the fuse in here and do the shape radius. I think they're still way too big, to my liking at least, so let's do maybe 6, 8. Let's do 550. Uniform. Let's consider particle shape in here as well. Like so. Yeah, I think this is good enough. Now let's do another mesh in here. Turn off render only. Let's go to rock final. Let's pick our scatter small as well. Yeah, so as you can see, it also cut out the geometry underneath our newly added scatters. And yeah, that's kind of it. Now all you have to do is to place some materials onto it, and that's it. Now if you go to your rock base, you can just reset all operators and get a completely different rock with each generation. Thank you for watching, and take care.